Today I will be reviewing 2019's Child's Play, which is directed by Lars Klevberg. So Andy Barclay, played by Gabriel Bateman, receives a gift from his mother, played by Aubrey Plaza, which turns out to be a buddy doll, who's voiced by Mark Hamill. But when it turns out the defective doll turns out to be a killer doll, it's up to Andy and his friends to stop the doll from harming anybody close to them, while at the same time keeping the situation secret from Andy's reoccurring neighbor, Detective Mike, played by Tyree Henry. For starters, if it wasn't obvious to people who aren't familiar with the original franchise, this is on the border of remake, reboot of the original property. I really liked all the characters in the movie. I thought all the actors did a really good job, but more notably to me, I thought that Gabriel Bateman as well as Mark Hamill voicing Chucky were probably the best performances of the film, which is a very comforting thought considering that the duration of the film mostly consists of both of those characters. Yeah, I thought that Gabriel Bateman, I thought that he did a really good job playing Andy. It's very different from the original Andy from the original franchise. This kid is more of a preteen or just like an early teenager, and so he has a very different mentality than the other Andy is like, you know, he's a little kid, he's a little child, and this one is more like he's a lot older, and they even make jokes about how he kind of feels like he's a little too old for this doll. Mark Hamill, I thought, did a fantastic job as Chucky. That was one thing when I found out that this movie was going to be made. That was one thing that I was very much worried about, is who they're gonna pick for the voice of it, because Brad Dourif in the original, I kind of feel that characters are their voices, and Brad Dourif has such a unique take on the character that I just couldn't see anybody else doing the voice. But once I found out that it was Mark Hamill, actor that has voiced characters that I've liked in the past, like, you know, his most notable performance as the Joker in all the animated series and video games for Batman, yeah, my worries kind of faded away. His chemistry with Gabriel Bateman was fantastic. It was more heartfelt than I thought it would be. Not just their chemistry, but the whole movie itself. You know, at the end of the day, this is a horror film, but there was a lot of heart to it that I didn't expect. And along with that, Mark Hamill's performance, he really gave something to the character that almost left you feeling sympathetic for him. Unlike the previous films, it's not a soul in a doll, it's this AI essentially, and you know, it kind of takes the information that it learns from observing and carries out orders that Andy might have, or it thinks Andy is giving, and you can't help but feel bad for him because naturally, because he's a robot, he's taking all these things so literally. But you also understand the perspective of the human characters. They have to stop this killer doll from harming anybody else. Because of the way that I'm saying things went down in this movie, it also affected the tone of the movie. This movie is very much trying to give like heart to the character and heart to the situation and the relationship between Chucky and Andy, but because of that, you know, it's also a horror film, so there are these like really heartfelt moments, but then the very next second something incredibly violent is happening. And so I can understand if someone was having trouble grasping like a solid tone that the movie had as a whole. In the writing area, it's not the most original. I've seen plenty of stories in the past, whether it be some TV episode or just a movie plot where it had this "if I can't have you, no one can" kind of story, you know, with this character kind of like taking all these people out so they can have this specific protagonist all to themselves. That's pretty much what this movie was, and it's not that original. And I feel that if you do a plot like that where it's not the most original, I'm not going to knock it if you do something with it that I haven't seen before, but unfortunately with this movie, it kind of falls in the category of doing things that I have seen before. Aubrey Plaza and Gabriel Bateman, I liked the chemistry that they had on screen. I will say at the very beginning of the movie, it was like a slow start with it being convincing to me that they were like a mother and son dynamic. It felt very much like they were almost brother and sister with the way that she was talking to him. I don't know what it was, but I will say that their dynamic got more believable as the movie went on. There's also this recurring character that Aubrey Plaza's character is with, this guy that she has relations with that Andy is not okay with, and I thought they did a good job at kind of giving off how this guy was a jerk. There are characters in horror films, much like this character, where you're not really supposed to like him, and he's specifically designed so that you don't like him, which I get, and I liked what they did with it. My thing is, a part later on in the movie where I felt like they didn't really need to go that far with it. More of the details that were supposed to have you not like him even more, I just felt like it wasn't that necessary, and if it meant that we can, like, cut down some of the time in the movie, I just felt like it, yeah, that could have been trimmed out. If anything, it could have been a deleted scene. So going along with Andy's character, I liked how in this movie he had friends. He had almost this support system in the movie. I really liked the dynamic that they all had and kind of what each character brought to the table. They were very unique in their own ways. The way they came into the picture wasn't as organic as I would have liked it to be. It was very like, oh, we're suddenly friends now. It was very weird. So the next thing that I wanted to go over was the design of the Buddy doll, the design of Chucky. Even before I saw this movie, when they showed the first design, I was just not for it at all. They never really changed it more since then. It's kind of just been like, this is the design we have, regardless of any kind of negative responses. They kind of just went with it. And on some level, I can respect that. My only thing is, I wish I could tell you guys by the end of the movie I got used to that design, but yeah, no, it is very ugly. You don't get used to it. By the end of the movie, you get used to the character, and eventually it's like you don't really see the design anymore. You're very pulled into what's going on, but if you didn't like it before you saw the movie, you're not gonna like it by the end of the movie. It's just not a nice design. On the subject of these products that they have in the movie, I thought it was a little strange only because they didn't dwell on it enough and talk about it enough, that all these like Apple-like products and these Alexa-like products where you kind of like tell it what to do, it was like this commonplace thing where everybody had them. You know, in our world, you know, we have products like this, and it's not a product that everybody has. A lot of times they're not the most affordable products either, but for some reason in this universe, whether or not it's just a buddy doll or just something that is controlling the lights in a room or something, you know, there could be this really poor character and they have these products too, and I just thought that was weird. And also, in this movie, there is none of that. There is no, like, alternate devices from another company. This company is essentially like a monopoly for these electronic devices. No one questions it. No one really explains why that is. And so I thought that was kind of weird too. It was like slightly preachy to me with like what ends up actually happening with all the stuff at the end. Although it was really brief, I felt like there was a moment in the movie Us that kind of went over the subject in a very light way without it being in your face about it, while at the same time kind of being like a social critique on our dependency on products like that. And in this movie, they do have a lot of moments like that, but it almost made the characters look like too pathetic. And I felt like if they were going to do that, I don't mind it, but kind of put it all in one scene, like put it all in the third act or something. So yeah, if I had any final thoughts, I would say that I really ended up enjoying this movie more than I thought it would. I thought it had a lot more heart to it than the previous films before it. I thought it brought a new approach to the character that I never thought would be possible. I think that people who love horror movies would probably enjoy this movie, especially if you like horror comedy, something more on that side. And also for people who like the original Chucky movies, I feel like this brings something refreshing while at the same time not doing any kind of disservice to those films. Everything I've said about this movie and how much I enjoyed it, I feel that the story that wanted to tell is done. And the thing that I'm worried about, which I feel like is inevitable, is the fact that they're probably going to make a sequel. I read something saying how, depending on the success of this movie, they would love to make other films. And I just don't like that. I feel this movie it's a very open and closed case with the story it's trying to tell, and I don't feel like there's more to tell. So overall, I'm going to give 2019's Child's Play a... So what are your opinions on the new version of Chucky? What's your favorite Chucky film? Put it down in the comments below. As usual, if you like this video, subscribe, and thanks for watching.